Welcome, friends. Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then I shall tell you the tale of a dark and ancient alliance, one that has haunted the Scottish Highlands for centuries. This is the story of the Kelpie and the Mermaid, and the deadly secret they share. The Scottish Highlands are a place of breathtaking beauty, with their rolling hills, jagged peaks, and deep, mysterious lochs. But beneath that beauty lies something far more sinister. These lochs, carved by glaciers during the last ice age, are some of the deepest bodies of water in the world. Their depths are unfathomable, their waters black and cold, and their secrets older than time itself. Beneath the surface, a labyrinth of underwater tunnels connects one loch to another, creating a hidden world where light never reaches. It is said that these tunnels are gateways, allowing creatures to move unseen from one loch to the next, and perhaps even beyond. The village of Craigmore sits nestled between three of these lochs, its people living in quiet harmony with the land. But the locals know better than to trust the waters. They speak in hushed tones of strange shapes seen beneath the surface, of voices that call out on moonlit nights, and of those who have vanished without a trace. The lochs are beautiful, yes, but they are also hungry. It was mid-October, a warm evening by Highland standards, when Malcolm McPherson found himself at the Stag's Head pub. The Stag's Head was a place steeped in history, its stone walls and wooden beams older than anyone could remember. The air inside was thick with the smell of peat smoke and whiskey, and the sound of laughter echoed off the walls. Malcolm, a local contractor, was celebrating a big win, a lucrative project that would keep him busy through the winter. His friends had long since left, but Malcolm stayed, enjoying the warmth of the fire and the company of old Jimmy, the bartender. Jimmy was a fixture of the Stag's Head, a man who seemed as much a part of the pub as the ancient clock that hung above the bar. His silver hair and weathered face gave him an air of wisdom, and his eyes, oh, his eyes, seemed to hold the depths of the lochs themselves. He moved with a grace that belied his age, pouring drinks with a steady hand and a knowing smile. As the clock struck midnight, Jimmy rang the bell for last orders. The few remaining patrons began to gather their things, but Malcolm, his head swimming with whiskey, stayed seated. Jimmy approached him, his voice low and firm. "Keys, lad," he said, holding out his hand. "You'll not be driving tonight." Malcolm chuckled and handed over his keys. "Aye, you're right, Jimmy. I'll walk. It's a fine night for it." Jimmy's expression darkened, and he leaned in close. "Take the high road, Malcolm, and whatever you do, stay away from the loch. The Kelpie and the Mermaid, they hunt together on nights like these." Malcolm laughed, waving off the warning. "You and your stories, Jimmy. I'm a grown man, not a wee bairn." Jimmy said nothing more, but as Malcolm left the pub, he felt the bartender's eyes on him, watching him go. The moon hung full and bright in the sky, casting its silver light over the landscape. Malcolm walked the lower path, the one that ran alongside the loch. The water was still, its surface like black glass, reflecting the moonlight in shimmering patterns. The air was cool, and a gentle breeze rustled the reeds at the water's edge. As he walked, Malcolm began to feel the effects of the whiskey. His steps grew unsteady, and his eyelids heavy. He found a large, flat rock near the loch and sat down, letting the cool air clear his head. The water lapped gently at the shore, and the night was quiet, save for the occasional hoot of an owl. Then he heard it, a sound so beautiful it made his heart ache. A song, soft and melodic, drifting across the water. It was a woman's voice, sweet and haunting, and it seemed to call to him, beckoning him closer. Malcolm squinted into the darkness, his vision blurred, and saw the water begin to ripple and bubble. From the depths emerged a black horse, its coat gleaming wet in the moonlight. Its mane flowed like silk, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Malcolm stared, transfixed, as the horse stepped onto the shore, its hooves making no sound on the rocks. Behind him the song grew louder, and he turned to see her, a woman sitting on a rock, her long hair shimmering like silver, her eyes as deep and dark as the loch. Malcolm stood, though he didn't remember willing his legs to move. The horse approached, its mane flowing in the breeze, and the woman's song wrapped around his mind like a spell. He reached out a hand to the horse, and as his fingers brushed its mane, he felt a strange, tugging sensation. The horse's mane twisted around his wrist, strong as iron chains, and the woman's song grew louder, more insistent. He felt himself being pulled toward the water, his feet moving of their own accord. The cold water lapped at his ankles, then his knees, but he couldn't stop. The woman's song filled his ears, drowning out all other thoughts, and the horse's mane pulled him deeper and deeper. As the water reached his chest, Malcolm looked up and saw the woman again. Her beauty was gone, replaced by something monstrous. Her skin was pale and slick, her teeth sharp and jagged, and her eyes glowed with a malevolent light. She smiled, and Malcolm felt the water close over his head. The cold was unbearable, seeping into his bones, but he couldn't shiver. He felt the horse pulling him deeper, its mane like a noose around his neck. The world grew darker, and all he could see were bubbles rising to the surface. He felt his lungs burning, his body screaming for air, but the creatures showed no mercy. The last thing Malcolm saw before the darkness claimed him was the woman's face, her smile wide and cruel as she dragged him into the depths. The next morning, Malcolm's wife reported him missing. The police found his car outside the pub, and Jimmy handed over the keys with a heavy heart, telling them about Malcolm's drunken walk home. But here's where our tale takes an unexpected turn, friends. You see, Jimmy wasn't just a concerned bartender. As he watched the police leave, his weathered skin began to ripple like the surface of the loch. His silver hair turned to flowing seaweed, and his eyes became as dark as the deepest waters. For you see, the Kelpie and the mermaid weren't the only ancient creatures hunting that night. Jimmy was their keeper, their guardian, a Selkie who had long ago made a pact with the dark creatures of the water. For every soul he sent their way, he got to keep his human form for another year. And Malcolm had been far from their first victim, and he certainly wouldn't be their last. Even now, if you visit the Stag's Head, you might find old Jimmy behind the bar, still warning patrons about the dangers of walking by the loch at night. But take care, his warnings aren't meant to save you. They're meant to plant the seed of curiosity that will lead you right where they want you to go. And if you listen carefully on your way home, you might hear 3 different laughs echoing across the water, the high melodic trill of the mermaid, the deep hollow whinny of the Kelpie, and the rough human-like chuckle of a bartender who's far older than he appears to be.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.